Well, let's speak to the Conservative MEP for the East, Vicky Ford, and the UKIP MEP for East of England, Tim Aker. Good afternoon to you both. Vicky, if I can start with you, if I may. Vicky, is this a weak list?
I think it's quite a substantial list, and it's certainly a very detailed list. I also believe it's an achievable list. It is a long letter. It's 6 pages of very detailed points that go into 4 different categories. When I talk to people across the East of England who took part in the last referendum, they often say to me, we voted to go into the common market. We voted on a package we felt would make us more secure. We did not vote to go into a federal Europe. We did not vote to go into a political union. This draws a very clear line that pulls us out of the ever closer union. It would protect us from the Eurozone getting closer together and puts in strong protections there. And it requests very strongly for that single market to be one that helps businesses, that removes red tape and removes bureaucracy and helps British businesses to trade across Europe. And that is, I believe, what a lot of people want. There's also a strong package there on migration and benefits and a bringing back of powers to Britain, including a red card appeal on European legislation.
Vicky, I'll come back to the migration and benefits in a moment. Tim, has he asked for enough? I mean, if he's going to ask for something, it doesn't look like he's asked for too much here.
Well, it's not worth the paper it's written on. I mean, some tinkering about migrant benefits, which the Czech Prime Minister has already said that they're going to veto. So as far as this renegotiation has started, the wheels have come off 5 minutes it's got out of the paddock. Look, I just think that David Cameron, again, spent most of the time saying, well, the European Union, he will campaign to stay in. Nothing about ending free movement rights, nothing about returning control of our borders, nothing about stopping sending £55 million a day, nothing about us writing and controlling our own laws. If it was going to go back to a common market that people voted for, we'd have heard that. But frankly, it's just another con job from David Cameron.
So, Tim, what do you think the response is going to be from the EU on this wish list?
Oh, well, I mean, they've already said, I mean, Martin Schulz, I think, as you said at the top of your programme, that he said most of it's illegal. They won't agree to it. David Cameron was being dishonest earlier because he said he wanted all of this in a legally binding framework, which means treaty change. But he didn't even say treaty change. The Parliament will just laugh at it. And actually, they've invited David Cameron to come and address the Parliament. So we'll see whether he takes them up on that. And you'll see from the reaction of an overwhelming majority of MEPs, they'll haul him over the coals of it. There's no way he's going to get any of this done. It's all shadow boxing.
Vicky, I mean, is Tim right? He hasn't really asked for very much, and actually, he hasn't the chance of actually delivering anything from EU.
I completely disagree with every single word that Tim has just said.
Every single word?
Oh,
come on, wouldn't you want border control back, Vicky?
The Prime Minister of the UK has written a very clear and detailed letter setting out the terms of the negotiation. And he has also made it very clear that the status quo is not good enough and that unless there is a deep and substantial negotiation, the British people will vote to leave. We know that. But what he has set out, the terms of a deal which protect our economic independence, which would stop these pressures on, as we've heard, our health care and welfare system of people coming in and claiming on those benefits, stopping that pull factor. He has been very clear in his letter that national security must remain the responsibility of individual countries. He has set in Tim Aker. Tim Aker, will you actually read the letter? So in my role, I want to get the best possible deal for the people.
You want to campaign to stay in at any cost, don't you?
And that is not what I have said.
If there was a referendum today, Vicky, would you vote to stay in or leave?
That depends on whether or not we achieve this negotiation.
No, if there was a vote today, answer it. You obviously don't like it how it is, so vote to leave then.
The status quo is not good enough.
So you'd vote to leave.
Walking away.
Let me jump back in.
Can I just finish my sentence?
Hang on, Vicky. Vicky, we have a short time, unfortunately. One of the demands on the wish list, well, not really a demand, one of the issues on the wish list is this idea to include restriction for EU migrants' access to in-work benefits. How is he going to deliver that when it's so difficult?
It is a really important issue, though, that needs to be discussed. What I want to keep in a relationship with Europe is a strong voice in the business laws that underpin our trade with Europe. I see that every day. Rules that would affect our car sector. You're there in Luton where we have our Vauxhall plant. I want to make sure that the rules that allow us to trade across Europe on areas like chemicals, areas that we've been discussing today, on medicines, on our digital policy, work for the UK, and that we do not get stuck in a situation where the rules that are made in Brussels just get cut and pasted onto the UK without having a voice. That is the deal that Norway and Switzerland get, and I want to negotiate, if possible, a package that supports us staying in the single market in a strong voice, but protecting our borders and our economic independence as well. And that's what this package does.
I'll come back to you in a moment, Vicky. Tim, can I ask you, we're broadcasting from Luton Airport today, EasyJet celebrating their 20th anniversary. When we finally have this referendum, if the British people vote to leave the EU, would that mean we can't travel to and from Europe anymore? I mean, how would that affect an organisation like EasyJet and an airport like Luton?
Well, trade would go on. We would have a negotiating period after we vote to leave to settle the terms of the EU-UK free trade agreement. I mean, I've got ports in my constituency. They negotiate 8 to 20-year contracts. Trade will still continue. We are in a very, very strong position. The EU sells far more to us than we sell to them. We want trade. I mean, do we have to be in a political union to trade? I mean, the EU creates trade deals with South Korea and Mexico. Nobody's expecting those two countries to join the European Union. So why do we have to be in a political union? Why not just go back to the trading relationship that people thought they were joining in the early 1970s? The EU is not the horizon anymore. There is a world out there. If Iceland, tiny Iceland, can negotiate its own free trade deal with China, then what can Great Britain do? And I think that's the one thing we need to, and stop being little Europeans and be Great Britain again and embrace the world.
We are not being little Europeans. I too want to have a trade deal that works for the UK.
The European Union. We all know that.
Not true, Tim.
Well,
I want to make sure.
Would you vote to leave or remain if the referendum was held today?
I want to make sure that we can continue to trade across the single market with a full voice on it, and that we don't get our terms of trade dictated by 27 other countries. That is the deal
Vicky,
that I want to work with. Yes.
Vicky, can I ask you, the Prime Minister told the CBI yesterday he's got no emotional attachment to Europe. Is he fighting hard enough to stay in?
I think we need to make sure that we get this negotiation. Okay, the status quo is not working, because if the Eurozone move into this political union, that will not work for us, and that doesn't work for the 10 countries who are outside the Eurozone. The people that we are negotiating with on the other side of the table, they understand that. That is why the Prime Minister was asked to write this letter, is because they understand that. They understand that they want us to stay in NATO. They want us to stay in the common market, single market. What I understand with Tim's point is he just says, let's walk away, let's not even try and have a negotiation, and let's try and negotiate afterwards.
Misrepresentation.
Whereas
Tim,
I want to try and negotiate now.
Vicky, let me stop there. Tim, maybe the EU and the Europeans want us to stay in, and maybe they want us in this club of theirs.
Oh, of course. We give them £55 million a day. I mean, with the rest of the Eurozone economies in the doldrums, they love our money. But the British people, when asked, do you want a simple trading relationship with the EU, they love it. And with all this, I'm sick of Europhiles like Vicky talking Britain down. We are stronger than people like that would have the public believe. We are strong enough to negotiate our own settlement after we leave the EU. I mean, Digby Jones, a very, very important campaign for business, said that if we were to leave the EU, the Germans would insist 24 hours after for a UK-EU trade deal. I mean, you're getting more businessmen. The chairman of Lloyd's saying there's nothing to fear by leaving the EU. The longer this goes on, you'll see more business people come out and say, look, leaving the EU, business will still continue. Let's embrace the world. Let's negotiate our own trade deals. Let's control our borders. And let's put that £55 million back into the UK.
Okay. So what I
Vicky
say,
and Tim, Vicky, I must leave it there,
look
unfortunately, Vicky. Thank you. The Conservative MEP for the East, Vicky Ford, and the UKIP MEP for East of England, Tim Aker.